All right, so here is your video lesson for August 31st. The lesson is 1.2C, Order of Operations. Some announcements. You have a test coming up next Wednesday. I already put the test review and key into your Google Classroom if you want to go ahead and start looking at it. The reason why I put it up so early is because we only have 2 more class days before your test. We have this Wednesday, this Friday, and next Monday you don't have class because it's a school holiday. So you'll be coming back on Wednesday and you'll have to be ready for the test. We're not spending any class time working on the test review, so it is your responsibility to work on the test review, look at the key, and then come in for tutoring if you need any help on anything, okay? My other announcements, the first 2 are basically about I'm going to stop doing the Google Forms for the attendance and the homework grades. The reason is because it was causing some confusion. Students would do the Google form, but forget to do things in the Google Classroom. And it just occurred to me that if I'm having to go reference and dig for things back and forth between the two, there's no point to that. So I think it's okay that I can do attendance without an actual Google form as long as you log in and submit the attendance assignment. I think that that's fine. I just was doing the Google Forms because lots of people were, but for me, I think it ends up complicating things when it doesn't need to be. And then for your homework, please be sure that you're writing your grade. So write your grade on top of the picture you submit, even if your grade is 100. If you're not writing the 100, it's hard for me to tell if you just forgot to check it or not. So put 100 even if you didn't miss anything. And then the last announcement, I will be making a quizzes retake for everyone to have a second chance, just this one time only. For those of you who are new, and even if you're not new to Johnson, we usually do, in the math department, we do retakes for quizzes and tests for anyone who failed it, and then they can retake it for up to 70. This time I will just be letting everybody retake it, and you can have the higher of the 2 grades, even if it's more than 70, and even if you didn't fail the first time. So that's this first time around. All right, our lesson today is order of operations. I had put my old set of notes at tricky up here. Tricky, 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 tricky. But I'm going to switch it to long. They're not really tricky, they're just long problems. And what I want you to do real fast is pause your video and answer these 2 little problems up here. And then we're going to talk about if you got the same answer or different answers. Okay, hopefully you got different answers for these. The second one is positive 9. What that second one means is that -3, because it's in parentheses, that entire thing is squared. So it means -3 times itself, which is positive 9. But the first one does not mean that because the negative is not inside any parentheses. The only thing getting squared is the 3 part. The negative is outside that. So it's almost like you have this -1 times 3 squared. You would do the exponent first, which is 9, and then times the negative that's out front, which is -9. So notice those are different answers. Pause the video and I want you to explain this in your own words to yourself. All right, the reason why I asked you to explain it in your own words is so that it would sink into your memory better about why these 2 situations are different. And basically what's going on here is when there's a negative and a square exponent, two situations come up. Parentheses mean a positive number or a positive answer. No parentheses, you get a negative answer. And we're going to use this idea while we work these problems on the bottom of the paper. So these two problems both say evaluate something, and it gives us an algebraic expression. Evaluate something for when a certain variable equals a number. So in the first one, it says evaluate x squared for x equals -3. That word evaluate means to find the value. So we are finding the value of x squared when x equals -3. So you pause the video and you plug that in and see what you get. Is it going to be -9 or +9, like in the example we just did? I hope you got +9, and here's why. When we put -3 in for x, you might feel like this is correct, but it's not. That x squared means all of whatever x is, all of it, is getting squared. So if that x value is negative, then that is part of what is getting squared. So I put parentheses to include the negative. So this means -3 times itself, which is +9. So now that I made that clarification for you, I want you to try number 2, where you're plugging in 2 for every x that you see, and there's 2 of them. And you're plugging in -3 for every y that you see, and there's 2 of those. And pause and solve that problem. Okay, hopefully the first thing I want you to check is that your substitution was correct. Three times 2 squared minus 2 times -3 plus 2 times all of -3 squared. Order of operations says to simplify parentheses first. And even though we have a bunch of parentheses, there's nothing inside any of those that can be simplified more. So we skip over to exponents. I have 2 squared, which is 4. And then I have -3 squared with parentheses around it, which we know is 9. We just talked about that in the first example. And then I'll bring everything else down. I have the 3 up front. The next thing I do is all the multiplications from left to right. So 3 times 4 is 12. -2 times -3 is +6. And +2 times 9 is 18. And now we add those left to right. 12 plus 6 is 18, plus the other 18, that is 36. Now, we're going to do some really long problems, so on the back. And we did these together in class. Pause your video, take a moment, and try this problem. All right, so the first thing you should have done is simplified the parentheses as much as you can. So I'm just going to do that first and not think about the rest of the numbers for a moment. 4 squared, 16, and then I have the divided by 4. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. All right, so that's me finishing the parentheses. I'm just going to bring everything else down around it. So 10 times 4 is 2 times 4. And then I have 4 for my parentheses, and then I'm going to bring down this divided by 2. Divided by 1/2 plus 9. So now we're going to do multiplication and division from left to right. So this one gives me 40. And with multiplication and division, It might seem like, oh my gosh, why is she doing that one at a time and then writing everything else out? It's going to take forever. The thing, though, is that it keeps my math in order and clear, so I know I'm doing the multiplication and stuff and division in the way it's supposed to go. So if it helps me get the answer right the first time, it kind of saves me time versus if I got it wrong and had to go back over. So then left to right, the next multiplication or division is right here. That's 8. So I'm going to bring everything else down. And then the next multiplication or division I have is the 8 divided by 2 here. And then I have one last division. This is 4 divided by 1/2. So if you remember when we talked about complex fractions the other day, we said if you're dividing by a fraction, you keep, change, flip. You keep the first number the same, you change from divide to multiply, and you flip the second one. 1/2 becomes 2/1, or just 2. That's also called multiplying by the reciprocal. And the reason why this is a rule is think about you have a pan of brownies, and it's divided into 4 pieces. Okay, and then you take each of those 4 pieces and you divide each of those into half. So each of those 4 you break up into 2 pieces, into halves. How many pieces do you have now? You have 8. That's why the keep, change, flip, or multiply the reciprocal, that's why that works. So 4 divided by 1/2 is 8. And then I bring down the 40 minus and the plus 9, and we do this from left to right. This is 32 plus 9, that is 1. So I want you to pause and do this next problem. I'll leave this up here in case you need to see. Okay, so you should have got -18 for this one. And if you did get -18, don't stop the video because I have these things down here to talk about. Just skip through me working the problem if you already got the answer right to the end so I can talk about those videos. All right, so we're working inside parentheses first. We do the exponents. So 2 squared is 4. We do multiplication division from left to right. So that means 20 divided by 4 first, which is 5. And then 5 times 5, which is 25. And 25 divided by 5 is 5. So I did all of this. And now I bring the rest of the stuff. So I have -10 divided by the 5 from the parentheses. And then the stuff from the right times 8 minus 2. So now multiplication and division left to right. So -10 divided by 5 is -2. -2 times 8, -16, minus 2 is -18. And if you've been learning asynchronously for the last several days, I need to make this announcement to you. This video right here, which you can type into your YouTube, I sound so old. Plug it into YouTube, and it's a video talking about attendance, how to make up attendance if you've lost credit for attendance issues, the way you can make that up. And then these 2 videos are from your counselors. The first one introduces people to you and where you would go for certain services. And the second one is going to have you fill out a needs assessment about the things you need from the counselor's office. And in that video right here, there's a QR code, or you can use the provided URL instead if you want to type it into your web browser to go answer those questions, and they'll walk you through it. All right. And there's an assignment for today's lesson for homework. It's in your Google, it's in the stream in your Google Classroom. There's an announcement. It has the blank assignment and the key so that you can check it and see where your mistakes were. And then post a picture with your name and grade on it in the classwork tab. You go find that assignment.